It's good to be here, everyone. It's very nice to see you. I had a little bit of a surprise this afternoon. My daughter, we had a graduation party, and right before it, my little brother, who I don't get to see very often, who lives over in California, he just showed up at my house, and so it was just one of those days that was really magical and so good to see him. You never know what's gonna happen in life, and so it's good to be here. Just a couple of brief announcements. I have a retreat coming up. It's a Thursday through a Sunday. It is July 18th through the 21st. So I'm inviting each and every one of you to join us if you feel called, if it feels true in your heart. Now, my retreats, they tend to be really small and intimate, and they're just wonderful times to deeply connect with that which is greater and that which is holy, that which is divine. Retreat is really a gift we give ourselves. It's a rare gift. I have some family in town, and I come from a family of that really values work, and so everyone's like constantly doing and achieving, and just like working really hard at whatever their job is. And I grew up my whole life with just a really strong work ethic. It was just what was valued. And, in a real sense, this culture here in the United States puts, an overemphasis on work. Some of us spend our whole lives just slaving away. And, we don't even know that we could do something like go on retreat. We could give ourselves permission to fully stop our lives. And, with each retreat, I say, a very similar thing of the importance of the retreat, but I don't think many of us, unless we've made a habit out of retreat, there's a lot of people on this path who haven't given themselves full permission just to stop and to step out of samsara. It's just so powerful. We have an idea that we're supposed to work constantly, and then if we stop, we must go, to a place with sand and an ocean or a lake or whatever it is, and many people don't even know that this is an option. I can remember when I was, I was quite young when I did my first retreat. This was not a Zen retreat. This was it's actually a Christian retreat, and I might have been 12 or 13 years old, and basically my mom just signed me up and said, "Craig, you're going on this retreat." I was like, "What is a retreat?" And she's like, "Well, it's a day where you just spend, like praying and talking about Jesus." And I thought, I was 12, and I mean, I like Jesus, but I was always skeptical of anything associated with the church. And they took us off, like on buses, and took us to a can't remember exactly where it was. It was a monastery or a convent of some sort, and maybe just like a Christian center, and it was just so different than anything I'd done as a child. I mean, I spent a lot of time in nature, and I would go to church, but I just felt, even as a kid who was like right on the edge of being a teenager, oh, there's something good here. There's something silently joyous about this. And it was different than anything that I would normally think of doing as a kid. Like I said, I was either at school or I was in the woods, just playing and getting into some kind of trouble. And then Sunday mornings, we went to church. In church, I always, I enjoyed the presence of the church, but I didn't know that there was other options, And the beautiful thing about retreat was, it wasn't as formal as church, the Catholic Church with the rituals and all that. We didn't have to sit there silently. We were actually asked, what we were going through, what was on our minds, what we were struggling with. And so in a real sense, it was like the experience of satsang, of coming together and being honest, being real with what's happening in our lives. That's different than just simply sitting and receiving, quote unquote, the teachings or the wisdom or the word of God, from some man on a stage. It was engaging. It felt so alive, even as a 12-year-old boy. And it's interesting because I haven't thought about that in years. I just, that was something that's emptied out of my memory, but it's just coming back, that there's something so profound, and just taking a day and giving oneself permission to stop and reflect deeply upon one's life. It's beautiful to show up to satsang. It's beautiful to have a daily meditation practice. But the beauty of retreat is that it demands your life stop, that you put your life on hold, and all, that karmic inertia, that comes with living in this busy world that we live in. It used to be that, at one point, the first people who drove cars, that's all they did, is they would drive the car. Then there was the invention of the radio, and so they'd drive the car and listen to the radio. And now we drive our car, listen to our radio, and text, and some people even FaceTime, do video calls, and it's just crazy, how busy our lives have become. And it's nice to go to a place where we put everything down, stop all those busy tendencies, and just ask, what is my life about? What is true? Who am I? I was meeting with Ivy this week, and she said something beautiful. She said, Craig, when you ask that question, who am I think of my personality, and I feel into my personality. But when you ask that other question of, what am I? She said, what is much more powerful, because she feels into the whatness, the whatness of her presence. Whatness isn't a word, but I'm going to use it now. That the fabric, the beingness, the texture, the aliveness. And this is what retreat is about. This is what this moment is about. If you would like to join me, is feeling the energetic aliveness of your being. And, for any of us, as we connect with our being in a deeper and fuller way, we come to face with our divinity. Say, oh, this is what, those great sages meant when they said, I am that. I am that. I'm one with God, one with creation. I am the fabric of the universe. And so it's beautiful to sit and ask these questions, throughout your busy work life, and of course, to give yourself permission to stop. Sundays are good too in the Bible. Of course, God said, she wanted Sunday to be a day of rest, where we give ourselves permission to stop completely. And when's the last time we did that? We just stopped fully for a day. We didn't chase here, we didn't chase there. We didn't get lost in the past or the future. And I know I have spent so much of my life, worried about the future, or angry. I was angry about the past. It's just such a brutal way to live in that dynamic. There's great freedom when you give yourself permission, just to stop fully, to live in a different kind of presence, a different kind of beingness. And so anyways, it's so good to see you here. And I have a lot of questions. And the questions I received this week, the first one's pretty straightforward, but the ones after that are very detailed and came from longer emails. And so I'm going to just invite in the future to make a spiritual practice of coming up with very clear, exact questions. This is something one of my teachers, Adyashanti, he used to say. It's important it's a real skill to be able to know, like, what am I actually asking? What am I actually struggling with? And to be, very short, succinct. In a real sense, oftentimes when we get it down, to the meat of the question, oftentimes the answer just reveals itself to us. And so, anyways, this one's from my friend Marianne in San Diego. Let's see. She writes, lately, it has finally come to me that there's nowhere to go. Oh, this is good. This is what I was just speaking about. Yeah. That the truth is right here and now. It feels that the truth is, and she capitalizes, is. The truth is samsara. There's no way out. This feels both depressing and freeing. In that realization, I strive to love all that I am, no matter what arises. Am I surrendering, or am I giving up? Okay, this is a good question here, and welcome to those of you who just dropped in the room here. Okay, so the Buddha used to offer this teaching that nirvana and samsara are one. Nirvana and samsara are one. That both are God, both are reality. And, when we first begin to see this, if we are just what I call a good Buddhist, and I mean that like a good Christian, and oftentimes that is not necessarily a compliment. That's like a little bit of sarcasm in there. Sometimes a good Christian is a little bit too much goody two-shoes. Sometimes a good Buddhist will take a teaching or an experience, and that dry, logical, analytical part of their mind will get a hold of the experience or the teaching, and will if you follow that line, where you're basically allowing the mind to co-opt the truth. What happens with a lot of Buddhists is they fall into dryness, deadness. It can become a little nihilistic or cold, or like what Marianne is right. This feels depressing. But then, she also says it feels freeing. And so where you are feeling a sense of freedom with it, Marianne, in this place you're walking in the right direction. Where it feels depressing, I would encourage you just to stop and put the brakes on. When you start to see that the truth is samsara, what you begin to discover, and if you're seeing through the lens of your heart, what you discover is samsara is so ridiculously beautiful. Ridiculously beautiful. Even in the pain and the suffering, the hell and the turmoil, that there's this incredible beauty and radiance shining through it all on so many levels. So the beauty is just, you can relate to it on so many levels of beingness. And so the truth, yes, it sets you free, But the truth should light you up. Light you up. And when I say should, I say I say that lightheartedly. So let me tell you what I mean by that. So if we're not being lit up by the truth, and it feeling like freeing and buoyant and alive and radiant, that subtle depression is actually a place in your mind where you are still subtly or not so subtly attached. And keep in mind here, in this moment, I wouldn't even say it's wrong to be attached. Like if I see, a child in the street who's, struggling, because I'm a normal human being, I'm going to feel sadness for that child. And so I have some level of attachment there that I care. I care for the child. I want the child to be better and to be healthy and happy and free and have good parents and live in a good community and, have a wonderful life. Of course. And so some of us are just attached on just like a basic human innocence type of way. And that's our humanity. That's good. That's good. If we are seeing the truth, feeling the truth, and becoming, a little depressed or utterly depressed, if we're going into utter depression, that normally means there's a place in our heart that is closed and we're not seeing the full picture of the beauty of reality. Because when we truly wake up, you see that samsara is not hell realm, but it's so beautiful. Even in its hell, even in this hell, and that's the great paradox in it. I hope that's not too confusing. And so I encourage you to see, am I giving up? Because when you give up inside, that's her question at the end. Just, Craig, am I surrendering or am I giving up? When you truly surrender, it tends to feel more freeing and lighthearted, and it'll feel radiantly, beautifully, divine. Unless you're surrendered into a pit of hell and letting go of emotions and pain and sadness, that can, feel a little rough for a while. But then afterwards, after you get through the fire, like to the other side of Kali, you'll feel this lightheartedness and joyous and buoyancy. And so I'm going to say again, it should, and the spiritual police can remind me not to say should later, but you should feel more lighthearted and better. That's a sign that you're headed in the right direction. If we're feeling a little too depressed, we could be stuck in our mind, in our rational. And for you, Marianne, that may be a scientific mind because you're a scientist. Part of you is a scientist, it's an aspect of your consciousness. And so when we have like that scientific, archetypal nature, we can also, the shadow side of that is a little bit of dryness or too serious skepticism, or little skepticism is good, but when it gets to be too much, it's unhelpful. And so sometimes our skepticism or our scientific mind, our rational mind, or even our unconscious, type of mind, can get a little bit stuck, a little bit hung up, with the so-called coldness of the truth when it first hits the mind. But as you let the truth into you, when you let reality into you more fully, you will feel more alive, like radically more alive. With my little brother coming to town, and I don't know if people say little brother when you're older, but he's my, when you're older in age. But so he invited this old friend of ours, who's this fella named Tommy, and my little brother and Tommy have both been trouble. Actually, all of us have been trouble, most of our lives. But if you see Tommy, he's got big head of dreadlocks and a crazy beard, and then dreadlocks coming out of his beard. He's truly a wild man, and he's never, fit into the conventions of life. And it's just something I love about him. He's been a he was like an outlaw marijuana farmer for just years. And then now he's growing hemp legally. It doesn't have the THC in it, but he just has never played by the rules. I'm not condoning drug use here, by the way, but just what I'm saying is I love the spirit of my old friend who I saw today, and he's just so alive and wild and full of happiness and joy, and he almost speaks and rhymes, and he's always saying things that I have to stop, and he's almost like Santa Claus. He speaks with a twinkle in his eyes, and after he says something, I said, what did he just say to me? And he just gets away with so much. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because sometimes, really when we feel into reality and the hugeness of reality, we start to see that this world is, just this great mixture of, of just so much radiance and joy and beauty and divinity and mystery and mayhem. And, the energy of my friend Tommy is like the energy of the, what we call, out west and like the, the native traditions, like the coyote, he is like the coyote energy of just a little wild and crazy. And it's beautiful. And the truth is like this. It's alive. It's vibrant. It keeps you on your feet and toes. And, it's both infinite and just so specific and radically alive. And so we want more of this. We want to know this truth, and it lights us up. It really lights us up when we step into it and discover this, and it's a beautiful thing. So Marianne, thank you for your question. I better move on to the next one before I get myself in trouble, because I promise I'd answer all these questions. Okay, this is from Kate. She writes, Craig, I feel like I'm doing all the right things in terms of helping my Kundalini integrate. And now here's my question. If I need to do something when the energy feels stuck on the left side, I only get intense electricity on the left. There's the same story I'm telling myself from this place of fear. I'm aware of that. I'm trying to do my best to redirect my energy away from myself as I see what a loop of self-examination I've gotten into. It's almost become a compulsive behavior. And Kate, in a sense, you answered a little bit of your question there. And so when energy, all of us, of course, are energetic beings, so you don't have to know what Kundalini is for this question to have any meaning to you. But, all of us are energetic beings, and sometimes energy gets stuck on the right, sometimes it gets stuck on the left. Kundalini energy is the energy that's, in theory, is rising up the spine, but sometimes it doesn't go up the central channel. Sometimes it gets stuck, more on the left side or more on the right side. Oftentimes that's because we have a masculine / feminine dynamic that is out of balance. And what that means is we tend to have a shadow here. And so if we have, say, a shadow on the feminine side, fear could be a big issue, and so could the loop of compulsively self-examining oneself. And so the big thing is when we begin to discover that, if we're doing self-examination in a compulsive, neurotic type of way, where we're kind of beating ourselves up or always second guessing ourselves and, just doubting ourselves again and again and again, that needs to be balanced with some true confidence and strength and clear wisdom. And so in order to make that step, to balance, we have to look at, well, what does fear need? Fear first needs to feel safe. So anything you can do to help the body to feel safe. Laying in the grass is good, letting the earth hold you. Sometimes laying in bed is very healing and therapeutic, bubble bath, whatever. But I love just going out and laying on the earth and giving myself permission to be held. And just to ask in the now, in this moment, is there anything here that's going to get me? Is there anything that's going to harm me? And truly. And so that means we must sacrifice. We must let go of the thoughts of the future or the past and come into this moment and start to connect with the fundamental aliveness, and I'm going to use this word, safety of this moment. The safety. The way we heal fear, end fear, is through realizing safety. The safety, the nowness. If you feel into now, it's vibrant, it's awake, it's alive, it's vast. And all of us are eternally being held by the Divine Mother. And so I invite you, Kate, to wake up to this, to let go of the violence of self-examination. I'm a big fan of contemplation, which is in a very innocently, gently way, we reflect upon ourselves, the nature of our being, our pain, our trauma, our wounds, our shadow, whatever it is. Contemplation is a way where you just open, you're aware, you're feeling, you're letting the truth present itself to you. Self-examination, oftentimes, when it's done in a harsh or neurotic way, is a movement of ego. It's like a top-down where we're looking, what's wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? What did I do wrong? What did they do wrong? Why am I so upset? And it just feels like ego. There's no real healing in that. The self-examination game, but when we deeply contemplate, because when you're contemplating, you're letting the truth present itself. The truth. And the truth, could be, oh, I feel pain in my body. But the truth, if you look a little deeper, is, yes, there's pain in my body. But there's also this radiance, this aliveness, this divinity, this peace, this silent presence of Ananda. There's something greater. Something greater. And so, the way you're using the word self-examination, I would say, let's relax that. And if you feel fear in the body in that same old story, which I know, because I know you, I know the story you're speaking about. Lay on the earth. Give your story to the earth. Let her absorb your story, your pain, your wound. Yeah, yes, a beautiful saying. Thank you for that question. Let me just check this computer here. Let's just see what's here in the comments. It's good to see you, Jay. Good to see you, Regina. Good to see you, Dawn. Okay, so what's Richard saying here? Hey, Craig, I have a question when you see this. Okay, give me a couple minutes, Richard. Yeah, let's see. Let's see what's here. Okay, this is from Jonas, and he's in, let me get this right. I think he's in Sweden. It could be Norway, but one of those, I'll call it a Norwegian country. So anyways, my good friend Jonas. And he writes, Craig, I'm fully aware. Okay, let's see here. The last time we met, about 2 weeks ago, we discussed the inner child and the deep-rooted trauma that comes to the surface once again. And this is common, with inner child work, with, anytime we look deep within, we can find all types of things within us. So this is normal. And since then, Craig, something has happened with the crown chakra. For about a year or so, I've had energetic bursts from the back of my head outwardly with some regularity. I've also felt the same type of burst from the skull through the crown and upwards. Good. I just say good when there's any kind of energetic openness. So if you're feeling a lot of energy, this is normally a good sign. It's a sign that you're open, that your energetic body is open. If you're not feeling a lot of energy, it's a good question just to ask is, what's happening? Am I giving all my mental, emotional, psychic energy just to this thinking mind? And I've made my whole reality something quite small? Or am I willing to let go of that and to start to see and experience myself in a greater way of being? And pretty soon, when you do that, you begin to discover, oh, we are all energetic beings. All of us, this whole world is an energetic being. When I look at Doodles and Buster, or my two little Shih Tzu dogs, they are energetic beings. I can see the energy spinning around them. And so, all of us, this whole world is this whole energetic playground. And, all of us have the opportunity to open to this. And so Jonas, these energetic worlds just started opening to him, which is what I love. Okay, let's see here. So he's felt these bursts of light, going out of the top of his head. His Kundalini is awake, so that's common. And now he feels a divine presence coming down and into him. Beautiful. This is good. I feel a divine presence way above my head, and it's just penetrating through the crown, down through the torso, through the pelvic area. Good. And this is a very beautiful thing on the path, is when you start to open up energetically, what's happening is you'll feel as if God is just working on you constantly, upgrading your nervous system, your body, your form, your thoughts, your emotional state. And it's a real turning point when you truly let go and trust in this process and get out of the way, because then the path just does itself through you. God does the work through you, for you. Things become much, much easier than all that trying to get in the way and figure it out and this and that. That's one of the great things I learned along the way, is that, I can just give God not only, my life and, my struggles and this and that. I just give her this whole path and she'll just do it. And then if it doesn't work out, I can just blame her. Because she's in charge and she's the ultimate doer. And, I mean that in a non-dual way, not an egoic way, that, well, you know what I mean about blaming her. So, and life just becomes a joy when you let God do the work. Okay. Let's see if I can stay on task here. Okay, now the direction is reversed. He feels this presence coming into him. Now, when there is little or no resistance, it feels absolutely fantastic. Yes. All of us are divine beings, and we are meant to live a divine life. And, when you just let God move through you, live through you, love through you, be through you, my God, is life just a joy. Just an absolute joy. Okay. I've been surprised how anxious the emotional reaction has been when the energy meets resistance after passing the crown. Just when the energy's coming into him, he's been surprised at how anxious the emotional reaction has been when the energy meets resistance. Yeah, so sometimes our human energetic nervous system, and I'll say that a little bit more clearly. Sometimes our human energetic emotional nervous system, when it meets divine energy, sometimes it'll get a little frightened, a little overwhelmed, a little scared, because what people have monitoring and taking care of or not taking care of their emotional energy their whole life is their super ego. And so the anxiety, or the anxiety is this fear of the superego, letting go, and letting God take over the steering wheel. And so it's a common thing, it's a very subtle level of superego, but it'll manifest as anxiety because it's not sure it can trust in God, and because the superego doesn't know God fully. But so this is where we breathe, we relax, we let go, and trust is the doorway forward. And so it's a new thing when all this energy is coming in. We have an animal body, and sometimes an animal body is a little freaked out by grace. I meet all kinds of spiritual people who are terrified of grace, which seems ridiculous in one way, because this is what the spiritual path is about. It's about opening to grace. It's opening to something greater. And so if you're a little freaked out or a little anxiety comes up, this is absolutely normal. You just open and receive and let it burn up, and it will. And so he writes, I devote all my time and energy to allow this grace. It literally consumes my whole life. I have to confess, though, that my confidence is rather low at this point. Okay, good. And so confidence will improve through trust, my friend, through trust. People think they get confidence from, from the puffing their ego up, but your confidence, it comes only from trust. And the more you trust, you create a greater sense of openness. And the more openness, the more you receive. And the more you receive, the greater direct experience you will have. And then, when you have trust and direct experience that's rooted in truth, those are the building blocks. That is confidence. Okay. Right now I swing between, okay, hold on a second here. Let's see. I don't really expect there to be an end to the hardships on the path, but there need be an end to all the all-consuming havocs that regularly visit me. Yeah. So Jonas, you've been through a lot, and eventually it will calm down. It will calm down. And normally it's right at the moment when we think it's never going to end, that we've kind of made it over the hump, and things do just start to calm down. At one point I thought my chaos would never end, and it certainly did. Now I have a pretty outwardly boring life, so boring that I have to ride a motorcycle really fast to find some excitement. Some human dramatic excitement. But anyways, I'm probably going to outgrow that soon too. But anyways, Jonas, it will end. Have trust and faith, my friend. Have trust and faith. Right now I swing between fantasizing that happens when the crown chakra opens up, and then perhaps some kind of turning point and feeling, and then he swings into despair and, a lack of trust in his health and overall development. Jonas, just walk forward, my friend. That's all it is. Walk forward in the light. So oftentimes we experience so much pain and confusion on the path, and my teacher, he used to just say this one thing to me. He'd just look at me and say, Craig, forward. Forward to God. This is your mantra. Forward. There'll be times on the path when we feel we have very little confidence, we've lost our trust, we've lost our faith, we are getting beaten and abused by life outwardly, where, we have no financial support, we're out of money, our partner leaves us, our partner dies, or, our kids tell us we're no good, or whatever it is. There's going to be all kinds of things that come up on this path. And time again, my teacher would just say, forward. Forward. And I realized, when he used to say that to me, I would think he meant just use your willpower, Craig, and just keep walking forward. And on one level, he meant that. But what he truly meant is when you step into the presence and the grace of God, like right here in this moment, you just feel this energy that you are moving forward, literally. Moving forward. Falling deeper and deeper into the truth. into your own power, your own authority, your own, innocence and goodness and absolute divinity. When I was speaking about this with the first question, the truth feels alive. Alive. And samsara will feel sometimes really beautiful and sometimes hellish and difficult and painful and confusing and complicated, or sometimes you're just like swimming and drowning and but just this basic truth of, what am I doing? I'm walking forward. I'm stepping into the now. Like when you feel into the now, it's immense, it's timeless. But it feels like this driving force of energy. And so we must find this, if we don't know it. So anytime if I feel a little energetically dead, I just hear, what do I do? Forward. And forward means coming into this moment right here, right now, where we are walking forwardly out of samsara, and we can do it like that. Can step into this truth right here, right now. So I'm getting out of my mind. I'm getting out of that confusion. And I'm realizing the silent beauty that's right here, right now. Right here, right now. All feelings, emotions, sadness, heartache, whatever it is, everything comes and goes. But there's something greater that's beyond it all. Okay. Richard, give me a couple more minutes and I'll get to you here. Hi, Craig. Since our session last week, the floodgates have opened. I want to reach out and express what's been going on. There's anger and the sadness coming forward. It's deep, old, and intense. There's a capacity to sit compassionately with it. When I meditate, it takes me about a half hour before I can deeply open and drop into this. I call upon the Mother. And so you know what you're doing. You open, you receive. You give it all. Give all of your life now. Give it all to grace. All to the Mother. And this is the same as, what I was speaking with Jonas about. We walk forward. We never give up. We hold on to the truth when we're struggling. This is the direction forward. This is the direction. The path can be quite intense, quite confusing. But we must trust. So many of us, we come right up to this edge where we're being forced to either hunker down deeper into the ego or let go of control. And keep in mind, you're letting go into the Mother, the love, the compassion of the universe. It's like letting go into a giant fluffy bed. What people think of letting go is this terrifying experience, but it's letting go into a big fluffy bed who will take good care of you and support you. That's what we're letting go into. God has, I'll be a good Christian here, infinite mercy. And when we learn to truly surrender, we're letting go into this mercy. This mercy. Yeah. Anyways, good to see everyone here. Okay. Richard, are you still here, my friend?
I am.
Yeah, good to see you, Richard.
Good to see you too, everybody else. Hello. My question this week, Craig, has to do with, in your direct experience, will you talk a little bit about the differences and even the similarities between kind of a personal love that you'd have for a child or a partner or a friend, and then the kind of divine impersonal love that wakes up in the heart.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. So I'll make the distinction, then I'll speak about how I have both for God. So with, like if we're talking about falling in love with, in a romantic way, we all know what that feels like. Our heart can feel, very bright and euphoric, and hell, I mean, we feel like a, like a teenager again or something, where it's just like, oh, everything is magical and divine. And, normally if you feel into, like, I like to feel into everything energetically. So when you feel into romantic love, oftentimes you'll feel it on the surface of your heart, because that's where your emotional heart chakra lives, by the way. Your true heart chakra is about 3 inches in. But when it's lit up, of course, it just kind of encompasses all of your being. But, emotional heartfelt love is normally, it's on the surface. And it will feel, I'll just use this word, it'll feel physical, it'll feel more mammalian, if that's a word, like mammal-like. All mammals do this. They love their children. They nurse their children. They get, they give so much to their children. And it'll, it feels warm. It feels affectionate. It feels, a little, it can feel a little bit gooey, to some degree. It can also feel, in an unhealthy sense, it can feel really in an unhealthy way attached. Like, oh baby, I can't live without you. And, it's like, what the hell is that? Can't live without you. I mean, you make yourself the most needy person on the planet. You can feel like the neediness in that. And like when we're first falling in love, that's like exciting, as all those energetic channels are kind of hooking up, and they're emotional energetic channels. But eventually, after a while, it feels actually sickening, to think like, I cannot live without this person. It feels like what the Buddha called hell. What the Buddha called hell, to have that type of attachment. That's different than, like the parents' love for a kid, which is really healthy. And then, of course, there's healthy romantic attachment. And so this is a topic I could probably talk for a really long time about, but I'll see if I can be more succinct here. So if you feel into divine love, I'll take it on an absolute sense. It's a love that's like when you walk outside, say tonight, and you look up at the stars and you feel just the immense expanse of the universe. But simultaneously, as you feel into your being, you feel as if you too are a star, that you are this infinite expanse, that you are just as huge of a mystery as, the expanse of the universe, which is true. And there's no separation between you and that hugeness. That hugeness is you. So non-dual love, that's like non-dual love on an absolute level, which is, even to have a thought that there's a God outside of you would seem absolutely bizarre. Like, how could that be possible? That what I am is all of life, the creator, the beginning, the end, the alpha, the omega. And so that's one end of the spectrum. And of course, that's, say, quote unquote, the ultimate truth. But if you feel into each tradition speaks about the ultimate truth in an absolute way, and they each think that they know that theirs is the best. It is, quote unquote, the ultimate. So I'll tell you about a different ultimate. There's the experience of, you loving God, God loving you, you feeling your individual divinity, and you feeling her individual divinity. And it's wondrous. And you see that she is this massive creator. And she's created the beauty in you, the intelligence in you, the compassion in you, the love in you, the peace in you. And in a real sense, like that's what our soul is. It's like God recreated herself in each and every one of us. We're all made in the image and likeness. And so she was once just the only being, and then she said, well, bored, I'm going to make trillions of beings that experience themselves as me. And so, I'm just laughing at all the different ways. I mean, we can experience God. I think you were probably wanting a real simple answer, but so I experience God, probably on, 10 or 15 different levels. Like when I was a kid, I just felt like this childlike innocence. Hell, I shouldn't say when I was a kid. I feel like this almost all the time. This childlike innocence who just adores God. I just love her infinite, her beauty, her warmth. And, I'm a feeling type of guy. So like when I walk in a Catholic church, I feel this warm light of grace. And I just love it. I've always loved it. And I discovered, somewhere along the way that if I keep opening, just being this childlike innocence and opening to her, in a non-dual way, I feel that same warmth of grace and aliveness and love, like, when I'm just walking around town. If I'm not feeling that, I'll say, there's something wrong. I need to open and connect with her. And it's just like, you have a mother, I have a mother. And actually my mom's in town right now because my daughter graduated this weekend. But so like right now I have my whole family, and it was like such an emotional shock to see my brother today. I just like heart lit up. But like in a non-dual absolute way, I love my brother infinitely, but I don't feel separate from him. And it doesn't matter if he comes or goes. It doesn't matter if it's a year or 2 or 3 since I've seen him or whatever. But in another way, it absolutely matters. It's so beautiful to connect with him, say an emotional heart way. And now I even make it a divine heart way, because I was sitting with him. I was sitting with my wild friend Tom. We were just at my daughter's graduation party. And I was just feeling their divinity and just in love with their divinity. And so in the same way I fall in love with God, as in a personal way, I also fall in love with, even you, Richard. You're such a beautiful guy, and you have such a beautiful presence, and you have some of that wildness too, which I really love about you. And it feels good, to just be, there's a difference between being personal, being so involved with ego, that was, we can think of say as personal, like in a neurotic sense. But then there's also individual, and you can be an individual being of God, which is what we all are, and be completely non-personal as well. And that's can be really confusing for people to feel like, what does that mean? That's something we have to step into, where you are an individual divine being, which we all are. And then can you as an individual experience this greater God, like in the form of the Divine Mother, love, grace, or in the form of the Divine Father, emptiness, vastness, supreme, silent wisdom. That's kind of the masculine side of God. And that's what we're here doing. And so we all have a choice. People try to, one of the things I find silly is when spiritual people try to get rid of God, and they just try to go to the absolute. And what you'll notice is oftentimes, if you look deeply in their heart, a lot of folks who do that game, they're not actually happy. They're only living in their third chakra and connecting with God in the absolute sense. They can be really peaceful and realize a high degree of peace, but oftentimes there's not joy there. And so, one of the ways of it, for me to experience joy is to connect with the Divine Mother, to open her, to let myself be loved. And what you find is, it's a real funny thing is when you truly open and you truly surrender, even in the most personal way, what you'll find, or what you'll find is, she'll start erasing the personalness, the ego-ness that gets in the way because you're opening to her. She'll start coming into you and erasing that. And eventually, she'll be giving birth into you so fully that you don't feel a separation from her in any way, to any degree. And that can be quite bizarre, is when you start to experience yourself as the alpha and the omega, like the beginning, the end, the timeless, the eternal, the creator. I've sat at times and opened, and she started to show this aspect of self, which was, I don't want to say me the creator, but just creation exploding through me. And it was like seeing whole worlds and universes being born, through me. And it's like, is that Craig, or is God, or what? It's like, it's not Craig, it's the universe waking up in us as us. And so, the thing that most people get confused about with this question is, people try too hard to force themselves into the absolute prematurely. And if God wanted us all to live and be the absolute constantly, eternally, for our life here on planet Earth, she wouldn't have sent us to an evolutionary Earth plane world. It doesn't make any sense. She said, this world, this creation, this manifestation is here for us to experience ourselves as individual God beings and to have an evolutionary life. It's not a mistake. Ego's not a mistake. Your pain's not a mistake. The hell that's happening in this world that we are evolving out of is not a mistake. It's just one realm of existence, one realm of manifestation. And in this manifestation, there's almost always some level of human self that's evolving. And so I'm going to answer the question now in a human way, Richard. I can humbly say with great confidence that for most of us, life could be quite difficult at times. And I'm going to keep in mind, I just, spent a good part of 40 minutes talking about the joys, the wonder, the beauty, the divinity of life. But I'm not a guy who, who's going to BS you. We all know that life is difficult, that we have a human self that struggles, an evolving self that struggles. And the greatest gift that I should say, gave myself, or God gave me, was just, I always knew that there was this great divinity within us. And I also knew that there was this great force of love who could help us humans here on earth. And so as a kid, in the most just humble way, I would say, God, can you help a brother out? Can you help me? Give me the strength, the insight, the wisdom, the will, the honor, whatever it is, the honesty, the vulnerability to get through this thing called life. And a lot of spiritual snobs, especially in the non-dual world, or sometimes Buddhist world, and no offense, I'm big fan of the Buddhism, big fan of non-duality, but a lot of individuals prematurely try to get rid of God and just rest in the absolute. And oftentimes it's because they've been burned hard by life and actually don't trust that, that there is an all-loving God. And oftentimes what I find, like when I look at an individual who falls into that kind of trap, is oftentimes they just have great sadness in them. Oftentimes it's something as simple as they didn't have a good mom and dad who loved them fully, and then they just transferred that lack of trust onto God, which is unfortunate because, it's like, people hate Jesus because of what a Christian did. It's like, it's not fair to Jesus. And it's actually not fair to yourself, because you're missing out on having the support of Jesus in your life if you call his name and say, hey, can you help me out? He will come. You call upon your guide, your master. Each one of us has a master who we can call upon. And it's nice to know that. And she will speak to you. He'll show up in your life, whether it's in real form or, in a dream or just in meditation or driving down the road or whatever it is. And so, how was that, Richard? Was that a little too much or confusing?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And, I will just say this, I went speaking a lot in the beginning about, the power of retreat. I'm going to, just say one more thing about the power of prayer. Human life is hard. This mind that we're given, it's not good enough. It's not capable. And so we just admit these two facts and then give ourselves permission to fall on our knees and call upon something greater to come into us, to lead us, to guide us. That support that I've received over the years, it literally saved me. Probably 1,000 times. 1,000 times, maybe 1,000,000 times. And just to have that relationship with this force where I can call her name and immediately I can say, Mother, and right now I feel a deeper, fuller experience of love. Say Christ, and I feel a different flavor of God, the Christ energy coming into me. And to be able to call upon God and receive, whole realms of divinity and support. I mean, think about how fortunate I am. And I have good friends and many colleagues who will not pray, will not ask for anything, and they get kind of like old and crusty and overly serious and Zen-like and think everything has to be a void-like emptiness. And to me, that's actually a hell realm, to think that life has to be so cold and dry. Can we give ourselves permission to be humble and just open and see the love, the compassion, the intelligence of the universe take over your life? And then God in a non-dual way where you just feel as if she's living through you, speaking through you, acting through you. So anyways, I won't keep you all any longer. Thank you all so much for sharing your evening with me. And it's just been a great joy and honor to be able to sit together, to connect in this way. So much love to you all, and have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next week.